Hi, how are you? Welcome back. Rush Limbaugh having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. The telephone number if you want to be on the program, 800-282-2882, and the email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. As you know, ladies and gentlemen, I have a hobby, and that is technology, high tech, keeping up with the latest that's happening with things like iPhones and iPads and all the stuff, with television, whatever it is. And I've always been a gadget guy. I mean, I was the guy when VCRs came out. I was the guy who knew how to program them first. I was the guy who set up VCRs and stereos and video systems in my friends' houses. It's always been a hobby of mine. And I went cold on it. I went dormant in it for a while during the early days of this program, and I just swerved back into it. And I have shared with you observations as in my hobby time, i.e. relaxation time, I'm encountering more and more either direct or subtle political content in high-tech website and blog posts. And it interests me. I mean, you could say, Rush, why do you care? I mean, they're just part of the left. I mean, you could read some of this stuff from anybody. Yeah, but I don't know. The reason, folks, that it does, I'm always looking at the day we reverse this. I'm always looking down the road to the day when we finally bottom out and reverse this. I firmly believe it's going to happen. But I'm really worried. We used to be able, as I say, to rely on countless institutions with moral authority that just by their virtue of existence, they had the power, they had the moral authority to reject things, and people would automatically accept it. But while the left, they've had a two-pronged strategy. While the left has been literally creating insanity among their base supporters, and one of the greatest examples of that is what they did with the Iraq War. I mean, every Democrat ends up voting for the Iraq War. And they make everybody forget that. But at the time we finish, everybody involved in it's a liar. We didn't need to go. We're losing. We never had a chance of winning. I mean, you remember it all. The Democrats are doing this, jockeying for electoral advantage. But in the process, they're really creating in their base voters instability, genuine mental instability. And they keep enraging them further. They anger them further, and they become irrational. You get groups like Occupy Wall Street or others. Now, we've always had those groups. But as I say, there's always been a counterbalance to it. And it's been churches, it's been religion, it's been universities in some cases, but it's been institutions, time-honored traditions and institutions that when they spoke, they had automatic credibility. The left has also been in the process of destroying as many of those time-honored traditions and institutions. Such things as marriage. It's just one example off the top of my head. But there are countless others. Religion now, biggest enemy on earth, particularly Catholics. And in the process of enraging their base supporters and followers and then destroying the credibility with character assassination of any who might oppose them, they also fuel additional rage. And I think that's where we find ourselves now. We're looking out over the horizon at something we can't see anymore. And that's somehow does this get turned around? Some way does it get turned around? Who is it that can stand up and proclaim all of this wrong? It's why I said on Fox News Sunday, 2 Sundays ago when I was a guest, I said to Chris Wallace, I said, at times like this, the president of the United States ran for election as a unifier. I was reading a piece last night. This is fascinating, by the way. I should have printed it out, but I didn't. It was one of these young conservatives back in 2008 who was just hoping and praying that Obama was indeed the real New Deal. Not quite David Brooks, thinking he's great because of the crease in his slacks. But one of the things that this young writer said was, Obama, he's eloquent, parentheses, like we are. He is brilliant like we are. He is academic like we are. And he can unify people. Well, that's the last thing that he's done. He's done the opposite of unify. If President Obama really, and I mean this, folks, if he really cared about unity, you know what he would do? He'd get back here for those police officers' funerals. And he would take the mayor with him. He's really interested in unity. Instead, what's he doing? He's not talking about the need for patient dialogue, which confers legitimacy on this guy and the people whose club he belongs to that killed these two cops. And it's going to continue. The act is being cheered in many places on Facebook and Twitter. And why not? When you've got civil rights leaders leading chants of their followers saying, cops dead, dead cops, cops die. What do you expect? These people are already manipulated. They've already been bent, shaped, flaked, and formed into whatever the Civil Rights Coalition wants them to be. They're like sharks in the water, and there's a little chum thrown in with some blood. It's clear to see what's happening here. And there are people. There is an institution, the presidency with the bully pulpit and the moral authority that office has could be used to quell some of this. But we just don't see Obama doing it, do we? And why don't we see that? May not even have an answer cry out to you in your conscious, but your subconscious might be telling you, it's not who he is. It's not who he identifies with. He's a community organizer, acorn. I mean, cops in that world are the problem. See, community organizers don't unify. That's by definition. Community organizers agitate. They actually should be called community disorganizers is what happens. One chant in New York City last week, what do we want? Dead cops. When do we want it? Now. Well, they got their wish. You can't say, well, we were just blowing off some steam. Well, some of you might have been, but you got to realize, here's the thing about this too, folks, that stop and think of this. Remember Gabrielle Giffords? Member of Congress, Arizona? She was shot at a campaign appearance at a bookstore or coffee shop or someplace. What's the first thing the media did? The first thing the media did was blame Sarah Palin. And then the media blamed me. And I had never even heard of the woman. I'm sorry, folks, but I do not know all 435 members of the House. And I had never heard of Gabrielle Giffords or Gabby Giffords. I didn't know who it was at the time of the shooting. Yeah, but they blamed Sarah Palin. Stop and think about that. They blamed Sarah Palin, and even when it became obvious, it was silly. It was ridiculous. But their believers believed it, and their followers believed it, and they started trashing Sarah Palin again and again and again. And everybody involved was lying through their teeth, knowing it was ridiculous. Ditto trying to blame me. And they said, well, Sarah Palin, she had a graphic on her website with some crosshairs on it. She was endorsing, I think, the opponent of Gabby Giffords. And it was just to mention this is ridiculous. And I hear the same people who have actually been shouting, what do we want? Dead cops. When do we want them? Now. Say, no, that has this, no, that's just positioning. I mean, no, that's just blowing off steam. No, you can't blame it. But a graphic on a website that, this gunman out there that shot Gabby never probably visited Sarah Palin's website, much less heard of her. Ditto me. School shooting in Arizona. Our old buddy Brian Ross, ABC News. What's the first connection he tried to make? Well, he got the name of the shooter, and the first place he went was a roster of Tea Party members. Remember, Brian Ross, ABC, actually went on the air to report, we're not sure, but it could be, it might be, that the shooter X so-and-so is a member of the local Tea Party. It turns out that the Tea Party had nothing whatsoever to do with the school shooting, and is so often the case, the shooters in these mass murders are all deranged leftists. Every one of them, for one reason or another, is mentally disturbed, unbalanced, deranged, what have you, and they are all angry about something. And I'm telling you, this is a direct result of the ongoing, unstoppable, never-stopping, constant anger and rage that comes from the mouths of elected officials, amplified and promoted by the media. There was no hands up, don't shoot. There was no surrender. A chokehold is not the reason Eric Garner died. And if I sat here and applied myself and thought about it, I could probably give you a list of 15 things off the top of my head that are out and out media lies about things related to this topic and things unrelated to it. Now, how does all this fit with the tech blog? Well, I'm reading the tech blog, and I ran across something that I think makes the point. I don't know how old this kid is, got to be young. I know his name. I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want to make him famous, because he's an idiot. But he thinks he's brilliant, and the piece that he wrote is being cited as brilliant. And you know why all this is happening with the cops? You won't believe the rationale. Well, you see, we sit by and praise the military when they wantonly murder in Iraq and Afghanistan. And the cops are just like our domestic military. And it's time to stop the wanton slaughter of our military around the world and our cops. This is being hailed as brilliant. There's other things to it. Just want you to hear it, because this is the kind of stuff that percolates out there in a certain demographic among a group of people that think they're really, really, really smart, who are so clueless that it hurts. Anyway, a brief timeout. We'll come back and start working your phone calls into the maze here, so sit tight. El Rushbo executing assigned host duties flawlessly.